Yes, we're connecting. All right, so I will just check. This is working. It's not like it should. See, there's people waiting.
Yeah. I've received a
I believe
yes,
YouTube. We are live. No, we are live. So so happy that we are live, and I welcome you to our talk. Oh, hello. Yes, we are live. We are now live. Yes. Yes. All right. All right. So now, welcome to our talk about metadata and standardization. And I wish you a very pleasant talk. And I hand now over to Jan and Katrin Riechers, who will have this discussion with you. Have fun.
Thanks, Viola. So hi and welcome everyone from Jan and me too to this Mission Innovation Talk during the Frankfurt Book Fair. And it's afternoon in Germany, but it's morning in other countries. So Jan, who is the Business Development Manager at MVB, and I'm a Product Manager at MVB, we are very happy to talk about an interesting topic to you with even more interesting guests we have invited for you from Brazil and Mexico. Book trade and change. Can standardization improve your sales and reduce your expenses? That is our topic today. Nearly all book markets worldwide face increasing publications, growing digitization, and some cost pressures. So publishers and retailers really need to be prepared for this challenge. And we want to discuss if and how standardization metadata can be a good tool to do that. But before we're digging deeper into the experiences of our guests, one organizational hint, you can ask questions if you want to. Please write them down in the chat in Zoom or in the live stream chat in YouTube, and Viola will try to fit them in. So now let's just get started, and I hand over to Jan, who is now finally introducing our guests.
Thank you, Catherine, for handing me the word, and thank you, Viola, and both of you for the introduction of the event. From my side, a brief and warm welcome to the group of the participants and the audience as well. So let's get to the short introduction of the participants. With us today is Mariana Souza. She's a digital books coordinator at Rocco. Rocco is a prestigious publishing house in Brazil with a high variety on different books. And under her lead, the digital book output in Rocco has doubled in the last 5 years. And already that gives us a hint how important digitalization might be and why we focus on the topic of standardization and metadata. So welcome, Mariana. As next, we have Gabriela Gonzalez. She is General Management Advisor at Gonville. Gonville is one of the biggest bookselling chains in Mexico. They are based in Guadalajara and mostly focused on the educational market, but in total they have 31 different bookstores, and they have a high variety on products, so they offer everything what you can read. It's a quite important player in the market. It's nice to have you here. Hi, Gabriela.
Hi, good morning to everybody. Well, good afternoon for everybody in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. As next, we have Gustavo Cruz. He is an editor. He works in Mexico as well at the publishing house Almadia. They are the leading independent publishing house from Latin America, so quite an important player when it comes to independent publishing houses. He is coordinating and doing the selection of the catalog, and he's involved directly in creation of metadata. So I'm really curious to listen to you, what your experience are so far. Hi, Gustavo.
Hi to everyone.
Last but not least, we have Ricardo Costa. He is the CEO of MBB Brazil. MBB Brazil is our subsidiary in Brazil. It offers a variety of IT products to strengthen the infrastructure of the book industry. And these products are mainly related to the work with metadata. And Ricardo is super experienced. He already has 20 years of experience in the book market, and he has done several things like publishing, editing, parts of journalism, marketing, and now leading an IT service distribution company. Hi, Ricardo.
Hi, Jan. Hi, everyone.
So thank you once again, all that you are here with us. I'm really curious to hear your answers to the question we have prepared. So let's start with our talk. So may I please you, Catherine, to start with the first questions?
Yeah, I will do that. Thank you. So we want to start with you, Ricardo, as we have a more general question to you, like, can you explain to us what metadata and standardization really are in the context of the book market? How are they used? What are they?
Sure, Catherine. Thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be here with so good people, professionals, good professionals in the book market. I did some notes because I usually start talking too much and I forget the important things. So I have some notes here. But let's start. Basically, metadata is a fancy word to say information. In the beginning, when we start working here in Brazil and talking to publishers and booksellers about metadata, the first question usually was meta what? And one publisher invited me for a talk, and she challenged me to speak for an hour without using the word metadata. So then I had to work out what is metadata without metadata, saying metadata. So it is information, basically. Basically, metadata is all the information about the product, in our case, about the book. So starting from ISBN, the unique identification for a book, then title, authors, publisher, that you already know about that, but then going further categorizations, keywords, synopsis, reviews, etc. I can go here with 300 and more fields about information. But I like to repeat when I explain metadata, I like to say what our CEO in Germany says, Ronald, about metadata. He also says that there is more information about the book than the content of the book itself. So all this information is metadata. An example I use is the series Harry Potter. Everyone knows Harry Potter. But if you Google Harry Potter, you're going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages with information about Harry Potter that would fill much more than the 6 volumes. 6 or 7, Mariana?
7.
7, right. The last one is 2 parts. So 7 volumes of Harry Potter, but you have much more information on the internet about the book. So this is metadata. And the importance of standardization is that you need to communicate all this to your audience, to the people who sell your book, to distribute your book. So it's important to have a standard so you can talk to everyone. And in a global world like this, a book is produced in Brazil by a Brazilian publisher, and then it goes for sale in Japan, for example. We have a huge Brazilian community in Japan. So for a Brazilian publisher to sell this book there, they must receive the information and understand that information, and they need to know where to put the title, the name of the author, etc. So that's how standardization works, to make possible for Brazilian, where title means título, we say título, and the Japanese, and this I took note here, and I look at the on Google Translator, and Japanese use that title in a field named daime or something like that. This is the importance of standardization, and then we talk about Onyx, and we talk about Thema. It's a standard for categorization, and that goes on and goes on. And all this is very important because by experience, talking to many publishers, booksellers, and also reading some surveys by Nielsen, by JFK in Germany, we saw how these standardizations, how metadata really improves the sales. A survey by Nielsen in the US, in UK in 2015, so 5 years ago already, showed that complete metadata could increase your sales in more than 100%. We have been talking to publishers here in Brazil. We did some tests with them, and we saw, for example, one title from a big publisher here in Brazil. Before we standardize all the metadata and have it on the basically global standards, it was, let me check here, it was in the position 860 on Amazon, general sales. And after 3 weeks, we standardized everything. It went up to the position 51. So it's really a big difference in just 3 weeks. I know we did some experiments like that in Germany, etc. So during this conversation, we can talk a little bit more about these results, but basically, metadata standards, they do increase sales, and it's very positive for publishers and for the book, for those who are looking for the book, because they can find it. Right? Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much for this answer. And you just answered my second question too. So I think we just gonna go to Mariana. And let's hear what she's got to say.
So Mariana, for you, we know that you are a little bit more hands-on. So while Ricardo presents the technical, this more technical part here with a super impressive view. So thank you for that. You are more daily hands-on. So you're involved in handling metadata by yourself. So you have a different perspective, especially because you are a publisher here. So can you please describe us a little bit where your touch points with metadata are and how metadata is involved in your day-to-day business?
Sure. Well, the first thing is there are two basic uses for metadata for me, especially. There's the external use, which is what the stores see, what the virtual libraries, what the readers see and how they find my book. And then there's an internal use within the publisher and how we use that metadata to also manage our own catalog and find books on a certain topic or something that's similar to what we want to use in marketing to do a special post. So for the external use, it's basically about discoverability. It's about how do you sell books on a web that doesn't have a salesperson or a librarian to help you recommend, and how do your readers find your books? Because normally when you're on the web, you either already know an author's name that you want to search for that author, or you know a series that you're following, or someone recommended a book for you and you search for a specific title, but you don't browse. So how do I make my book discoverable? How do I make readers find new books, books that haven't been recommended to them, and books that have topics that might interest them based on what they've read before? So these are not only the theme and the BISEC codes, but also the keywords and similar titles and things that I can use to help them find my books through other means within the web, because normally you don't browse on a website. It's very difficult. There are too many titles. The internal use within the publisher is basically either for marketing uses, for we want to do a special post on Italian authors translated to Portuguese, or we want to do a curatorship to recommend books for a school project within a certain age group or within a certain topic. We want to manage our backlist catalog and find books that are similar to something in our front list that we are currently talking about, because front list is always on our minds, but the backlist can be too big for people to remember at the drop of a dime. So you use the metadata to be able to manage this bigger catalog and talk about books that have been published before, and you can use them to bring them back into the topic because there was a prize, there was a new movie or a series that was made about that book, or that it's similar to the topic of that book. And so we keep the catalog alive using the metadata to be able to search for those books. And also for the publishers, they can use this backlist catalog and these metadata to evaluate books that they're prospecting, or books that they're trying to see if they have already published something similar, to see how they performed in the market and how they performed within the publishing house. So these are uses that we do in our day-to-day basis, basically.
All right, thank you for the answer. Another question I have is a little bit more related to the certain kinds of metadata you can create and which impact they have. You already named something like BISEC and thema codes. Maybe you are likely to first describe a little bit more what this is. So I know that these are classification systems, but I can imagine that not everybody in the audience is familiar with these terms. So can you please describe these a little bit more and give an idea of what type of metadata is the most important, please?
Sure. Well, the first thing, we have the BISEC and the thema codes are genres of books. So we can have like, this is a fiction romance book, this is a fantasy book, but we can also combine them and we can say, this is a fiction romance that is historical and it's in the Victorian age, or it has magical realism, or it's for children of this age and it talks about social issues of friendship. So we have very general codes, and then we have very specific codes that you can kind of narrow down what the book is about. So BISEC and thema both have these groups of interest. They have these topics that are the greater genre and the very specific genre of the book, and it's how the books get sorted within the websites. So the stores will normally have the bigger themes, and you can go into a store and say, I want to see fiction books, but I want to see fiction historical, and they're based on this era. And then you can find the books because they're sorted with these BISEC and thema codes. We can also use keywords to help refine that search. And so you can say, well, this book is a children's book, but it deals with themes like parent separation and a new marriage and new siblings. And it deals with a fiction fantasy that deals with, I don't know, time travel. So you can refine that search with words that aren't necessarily in the big theme, but they can really talk about what's within the book that might be a topic of interest. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that answered my question very well. Thank you very much. So let's now move on to Gustavo to see the perspective of a publisher again, but a little bit different. Let's see what he has to say.
Well, Gustavo, you're an editor in a Mexican publishing house. So how is it working there with the metadata? Do you share the same experience like Mariana, or is there other use cases? How do you do it? What do you do with metadata? What's important for you?
Yeah, well, our first encounter with metadata was with digital formats for audiobooks and ebooks. That's the first time whenever we have to upload to the platforms that sell or distribute our or digital formats or digital books, they asked us for metadata. And it was quite difficult because since Almadía started as a really small publishing house, there were only 3 or 2 or 4 people involved. So we didn't have a complete information about our first titles. So that was a new experience that really helped us to, as Mariana put it quite well, internal use. So we had to standard all the information for ourselves. After that, when MB came to Mexico and they started to work with the retail stores and such, we started to use metadata to our full catalog, and that's where we first started to use it, and it was quite interesting to refine all the information about our books. So that's the main use we have for metadata now.
Okay, so what are your goals to just put them in a place and have big information for all titles and have the full information for all titles?
Yeah, first of all, it helps us organize ourselves, our own information, to share with all the teams involved in the publishing house. Now we use it to put to our marketing department and such. And it has been quite useful in that it has saved a lot of time for us. Now every time we publish a book, we generate all the metadata, and it's available for everyone, and it has been really important. Now, in terms of sales and such, the problem is we started to work with MB at the beginning of the pandemic, so all this, of course, the goal is everything Mariana said, to help improve the sales of our catalog and for books. But sales in Mexico went completely down last year, so we don't have the information yet to know how it has worked. But we do believe it will help a lot on that matter.
Okay, so you feel the change within your own publishing house, but you're just trying to get the information from outside, how it's impacted that too.
Well, as I said, it has saved a lot of time for us, and of course, it even has helped us to understand better our catalog, and I mean, in a certain way, no? how to put it to the public, because since we started as a small publishing house, we kind of thought a lot about ourselves in a way, you know, our tastes, our taste and such. But now it has helped us to make it like a more move to a broader audience in a way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great, thank you. That's a nice insight. Maybe we can hear from Gabriela, the other side, like how retailers can work with the metadata the publishers create. So
I agree, that would be totally interesting to see how metadata is processed in a big book chain and how necessary it is for you. So can you please give us an inside view? That would be nice.
Sure. Well, Gumby has now 31 bookstores in 10 cities in the country. We also have a virtual bookstore, and we also sell in different marketplaces, and we service other smaller distributors within the country. So, and as Jan said, we are very strong in the educational market with textbooks from K to 12 and up to college. But we also are very strong. We are one of the main players in Mexico in the trade book market. So, as you can imagine, our database grows and grows and grows and grows every single day because there's a lot being published. That's for the national market, for Spanish books. But we also do English books, trade books, and English textbooks. Why? Because, well, besides being a neighbor to the US, everybody in Mexico wants to speak English, sends their kids to bilingual schools. So you can imagine that we manage a lot of product. And I think our capabilities to key in the information for every single title we get, or every single title that is published, even though we still don't have it in stock, is unbearable. So MetaBooks has been helping us by, well, we get the information on titles, it helps our buyers, it helps our customers, it helps our sellers at retail, and mainly our customers at the websites in which we are selling, because with so much information, with so many editions, with so many ISBNs, I mean, this is the era of information, and I think all of us get too much information from a lot of different channels. So it's difficult sometimes to decide, is this the book I really want, I really need? So it helps us to give orientation to both our customers, our sellers, our buyers, and it simplifies life for us. So what we want is, and are willing, is that every publisher in Mexico, please, and every publisher worldwide standardizes and well, gets on the boat with MetaBooks. So we as booksellers can offer the best information to our customers, as I say, under different formats. Ebooks, books, printed books, print on demand, but on the different ways in which people come to us to get a book. On the website, via marketplace, retail. Sometimes we even have to, to present quotes to libraries, to schools, and it makes life much easier for us and for our customers. That's what we think. So yes, we're using it very, very well and daily, on a daily basis.
Thank you for that detailed insight view. It's super interesting to see. May I ask a little bit more about, so like you did it kind of like the same split like Mariana did that with an internal use of metadata and an external. So this is about organizing yourselves in the market. So when it comes to B2B business, but it seems like this is interesting even for the reader in the end. Can you make this a little bit more specific, please? And let us know a little bit more about why metadata is so important in the end for the reader.
Well, it is important for the reader because sometimes, and it still happens, and it's unbelievable, but sometimes people look for Harry Potter on the web and don't pay much attention, and sometimes they buy it in English instead of buying it in Spanish or things like that. So the more data they have to decide what they're buying, makes it easier for them, okay? And it's regarding covers and ISBNs and, well, author and title, of course, but even prices, formats, number of pages, everything, because that way they can select exactly what they're looking for, and it minimizes returns, minimizes confusion, everywhere. Even for our buyers, it's a great help to have the book, even before we have it in stock, we receive it from the publisher, we already have the metadata, and they know what they're gonna receive. They can start even working on the marketing of the book, who they're going to offer, our sellers, who they're going to offer it to. So it gives us a complete acquaintance of the product, okay? A complete knowledge of what we are selling. And that is I think, basic to really sell books, which is our mission. Okay, and to give our customers the book they really want, they really need, the edition they need, because sometimes schools are like, order hardcover and it's very expensive. No, we have this option. It's paperback. It's better for your students. Okay, it helps us in several ways.
Right. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's great to hear. I've got a question for Ricardo, actually. because we just heard like that Mariana, Gustavo, and Gabriela are using metadata very much, and they like it and they need it. But what do you think is needed as a basis so that they actually can use it? Because we always say, yeah, we create metadata, but what is like needs to happen that we can use them? So what basis needs to be there?
Okay, if let's see if I understood. If I don't answer the question, please elaborate a little bit more. Well, let's use the example of MetaBooks. MetaBooks is of course not the only way to deal with metadata, though it's the best. But I'll use MetaBooks to compare things, to give examples. When we start working here in Brazil, no one was, there was no platform to do this, to work with metadata. So we first went to booksellers, Gabriela, and asked them, what are the basic information you need to put a book on for sale, to be sold on your bookstore? And then they gave us, one gave 5 or 10 or whatever, and then we put all together. So the 5 bookstores we asked here totalized 18 different fields that were mandatory for them. So that's how we started. Title, publisher. Okay, the first and most important one is ISBN, of course. It's the unique index for the book. So ISBN, title, publisher, author. These are very well known. Price, of course. But then it goes a little bit deeper. I would call a second base on basic information. That would be size, high, large, weights, number of pages. Now, especially because booksellers deal a lot with online sales, and it's important for shipping. It's important to know, to get this information. Hardcover, soft cover, I forgot, brochure, as we say in Brazil. Oh, sorry. Other options of the format. And this is very important. Some booksellers mentioned to us that they realized they were losing some sales because basically the buyer found in one bookstore the price of the book was 10 and at the other was 20, but one was hardcover and the other was a pocketbook. But that information was not there. And so they just compared the price. Of course, half of the price, I want this one. But maybe this was a big fan of that book, and he would buy a hardcover book, but he didn't know, so he just bought the cheapest one. So these are very important information. Synopsis. It's impossible to sell a book if you don't have a basic information about that book. What is this book? What is this? What does it talk about? What the author is writing here? Categories are super important. Basically, here in Brazil, we deal with BISAC today, but TIMA is arriving here, let's say, and TIMA is a more global, and it's possible to detail better detail the information about the book with TIMA. So we are starting here a process of teaching the market about TIMA. Keywords are mandatory. I mean, it's not mandatory on the platform, but if you don't have keywords these days that books goes online, basically they go down in any search results. So keywords are very important. I think that I've mentioned, oh, and don't ever forget to put a cover image. At least one image of the cover, the basic, that one, the front, it's super, super important. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, that was great. And that was a great summary again to just get clear what is important when creating metadata, like Mariana and Gustavo do every day, actually. So what does the rest say to that? And what are your experiences with this kind of standardization? Are you getting used to it? What is about the rest of the market? What is your experience in your markets? Can anyone share their thoughts?
I have the other side of the story for what Ricardo was talking about on the publisher side. So that's interesting because Ricardo talked about going to the stores and asking them what they required as metadata. Well, I worked with metadata since 2012 when the international stores came in to create the ebooks. So at that time, I didn't have any system that centralized all of my metadata. And I had each of the stores asking me for different metadata. And they had different standards, all of them. So one of them had options for genres that went children's books, Brazilian literature, foreign literature, Harry Potter. Yes, it was a category for that store.
Good for you, let's say. Right?
No, not precisely, but anyway. And then I had another store, and they all asked for different styles of metadata. They had different options for categories. They didn't have the same standards for genres. So I had to create, and these were Excel files because each of them received an Excel file with a different format. And I had to create 7 different Excel files for each of these stores with each of these formats, and none of them was centralized. And so it was crazy to try and standardize what the stores received because they didn't receive the same things. They didn't ask me the same things. Some of them asked for the Dewey Decimal System, which is what is inside the book for the cataloging and publishing. And sometimes what also happened is that people would look into this cataloging in publishing, and they would find a topic that's British romance or historical romance. And you think, okay, this is a romantic story. No, this is the text format for Brazil, because in Brazil, romance equals novel. And so many of the books might have been miscatalogued in the beginning and might still be miscatalogued now because we use text format as one of the categories. And that's not something that the international standards predicts. The international standards predict topic genres. So this is also very interesting for us as a market because we work with romance as novel. We work with romance as romantic fiction. We work with contos and crônicas, which are 2 very different styles of short stories, but we don't have that separation within the genres. So how do we classify these? How do we send these out to the market? And that's I think, an interesting challenge for standardization as well.
Thank you for this super detailed view, how it works in your market. I saw a question in the chat, which fits very well, I would say, so I'd like to put it in here. The question is, who's developing those standards? Are those initiatives or official standard bodies? I think this is quite interesting. While you already explained, there was a huge variety. Everybody was dealing with different standards, and it's getting more and more narrow to one or at least some standards. So does anybody like to answer this question? So once again, who's developing those standards? Are those initiatives or official standards bodies?
I can say something if you want.
Like.
I can start. There is a global association. It's Editor. They are the most important in the market when you look globally. There are some very strong organizations in different countries. BookNet in Canada, for example, BISG in the US, Nielsen in the UK. So many different in country by country. But Editor is an organization who now has 27 or 28 countries members of this organization. And we meet at least twice a year, usually. Well, we used to meet before the pandemic in London and Frankfurt to discuss different needs from different countries and find a way to put all that together and establish a standard that everyone can work with. And then Mexicans can use that standard, and then the bookseller in the US can understand what they are saying or where to put each information. A bookseller that doesn't speak Spanish, but has a lot of Spanish buyers in the US. The example I gave about Japan, etc. So I believe that the standards coming from Editor, who are basically these days Onyx, that is an XML file with tags that say, with tags for the fields, and then you have the information on each field. Yeah, you were better on XML files, etc. than me, but this is basically the information. So Onyx is a standard for communication, for publisher send the information to bookseller and distributors. And Thema, it's a categorization that started with this global thinking from the basis, because BISAC, that's probably the most well-known in the world, is a good system, but it was developed in the US. So looking for their needs, nothing wrong with that, of course. It was from the time that each country used to develop their own standards. So we have many different standards. In Brazil, we used to use like 3 or 4 different standards, or no standards, as Mariana said. So now we have one that it's global, it's Thema. That's why I insist on this. But the idea is that with something that everyone is looking at together, it's easier to get something that everyone can use. Of course, it requires some change from publishers and booksellers, adaptations. It's a time of change. It's a time of moving from one standard to the other, but I do believe it's good. So I think I have already said too much about the issue. I'm enthusiastic. You can see it, right?
Thank you very much. Is there something to add from the Mexican market? Like, is there something else, or what standards are you using at the moment?
There were no standards practically. The Cámara de la Industria Editorial, the publishing chamber, made an effort, but then they didn't finish with that. And we look at Dilbe, for example, in Spain, and we are like willing, we had something like that. We didn't. So I think Metabooks is helping us really very, very much. And as they said, if you give Google searchers accurate information on what they're looking for, you'll be on top positions, and that'll give you sales. And yes, we are in deep need of standardization.
I also have a question in the chat of Zoom, which is in Germany. Is there a given pattern form for metadata? If yes, how do we get access, or is this to be developed individually by each and every publishing house? Please clarify. I think Jan can just shortly answer to that.
So thank you for the question, first of all. I would say Ricardo partly has already answered that. So standards are about having standards for international standards, and exactly that is what editors is doing with Onyx and Thema, creating standards which are fitting to everything. A certain pattern and form, this is a question of tools you are using there for, like Ricardo already told something, and Gabriela as well, about the system Metabooks, which is provided in the countries Brazil and Mexico. We have in Germany, or in German-speaking markets, speaking about Germany, Austria and Switzerland, we have the tool VLB. So this is short for Verzeichnis lieferbarer Bücher. Sorry for that complex German term here. So you can use exactly these tools to standardize your data, to work in the data, and to share the data in a centralized way with the whole market. So I hope I answered your question with that.
Okay, thanks. So can I ask another question to Gustavo and Gabriela? Like, Gustavo, how is it for you in your publishing house? Oh, I forgot my question while asking. I was just interested in, and how you share your metadata with the retailers. Like, do you have the same experience like Mariana? There's a lot of different formats and files you have to do. How do you do that?
Well, we are using Metabooks now. Before it was, as Mariana said, we had to make a lot of different Excel files. But we do have faced a difficult on certain side of the booksellers. There's one of the big ones. They're just trying to adapt Metabooks to the old system. So, for example, they only whatever fiction we give them, we have to tag it as just fiction. So we can't get into the details. It has quite difficult and frustrating, for example, because they just trying to stick to the old ways, you know. We feel that we are kind of losing all the different details and small differences between our books. As I said before, at the beginning, it has helped. Well, I want to go further into how it has helped us to understand our catalog. It's not that we didn't know what we were publishing, of course, but we used to believe that each book that we published was unique and it was impossible to describe or to standardize. But we have, because it was very, very special. But I believe there is no reader that goes to a bookstore and says, "I want to just read the most unique book you ever you have in your store." So that has helped us to put or explain further our books, and it has been and to see us as part of this huge system of publishing, you know, and not that only as this small kind of really special publishing house. Yeah, we do believe we are, but we can to try to explain it further to the public.
Oh, that's a really great summary or great conclusion you're coming to, because metadata just helps you to get your individual books out in the world. Yeah, that's great. That's really great. And Gabriela, what do you think? How's your experiences with in the Mexican market? How is it developing with the standardization? Do you feel something is changing with your work with all the publishers?
Yeah, it is changing. Before, as I said, we had to key in information to our system, and it took us a lot of time. And with small publishers, even though we asked for Excel files, they wouldn't send them. So we had to take sometimes even their printed catalog and key in everything. And it took us a lot of time. And as Mariana and Gustavo have said, and all of us, the more visibility we give to books, the better they will sell. Visibility in web pages, even in retail stores, so we can accommodate them or classify them better. So when people come to our stores, we have a better classification and a better placement for books. So I think it's growing, standardization in Mexico, and it's going to help us all. As I say, we are a big chain of bookstores, but there are small bookstores that depend a lot on the good information that they have for the books they're selling, and even us, as I said before. So we are very optimistic, and that MetaBooks will get every day more and more small publishers in Mexico to adhere to their system, and we get better information and can sell more interesting books that maybe we're not even carrying now because they were not visible in the Mexican market.
All right, thank you very much for this outlook of the markets in Mexico and Brazil. I'd like to raise another question from the chat. Hopefully that somebody of you can answer that, because it's a little bit related to the work of distributors. So I will just plainly ask the question. Let's see if we are able to answer. So the question is, usually talking about data and metadata, we think on the publisher side. How about the distribution side? What kind of data we could expect to standardize from the sellers? Does anybody like or is even able to answer that question?
I think there is one important point here. Usually when I talk about metadata, I like to say that publisher is the owner of the metadata. So the information must come from the publisher to booksellers and distributors. And I think, please don't misunderstand me. I don't want to decrease their importance or their work. You understand me, Gabriela, right? It's not what I'm saying. But what distributor and booksellers need to do is they need to learn how to use or how to work with the standardized metadata that comes from the publisher. Of course.
I want to say something.
Please, go ahead.
What happens is the publisher knows their books much better than we do. Since we carry so much product, as Gustavo said, we have very special, very specific books that they know why they published it, what their target market is, and it helps us because when you have such a variety in your bookstore, in your website, it's impossible that you know everything. So the more data and the more accurate data we get from publishers and through MetaBooks or through standardization, it helps us and it helps our customers understand what they really want. Because it's funny, but up to date, people come to our bookstores and say, I want the biology green book for secundaria. And it's like, well, the one with the frog on the cover. It's like, okay, so we need the cover to decide, see, and we have to have it in hand. And it happens. So the more accurate information we have on any title and the target market, the publisher knows much better than us, helps us. So yes, I agree with you, Ricardo. They have to give us the most, they have the most they can, so we can sell their books. Okay.
I'd
the
also
publisher
like to
is the father
here.
of the baby. Oh, sorry.
I'd also like to weigh in here. One of the things that I would love to see because normally we send a lot of metadata, and not necessarily all of the data that we send out is shown to the readers. It's not necessarily shown in the website. Sometimes it's hidden and you can search and you will hit the book because you searched for it, but the data itself is not seen. So we have very interesting issues that come up sometimes. Someone is looking for a present for a 10-year-old. And sometimes they will call the publisher and say, well, can you recommend something, because they don't know what to search. So I would love to see like a very optimized search engine, or maybe a bot, a recommendation bot inside the websites that can go like, hi, are you looking for your next read, or are you looking for a present for somebody else? And then the bot can go and help you with the curatorship, because there are so many books in the web that it's impossible for you to find something if you don't know something about what you're looking for. So if you could go into the bot and you can say, well, I'm looking for my next read, and then the bot can go through the books that you've read before and that you liked, and they can recommend a new read or a new author based on authors that you've liked before. Or you can suggest like, oh, I want something that's similar to this other book. Or I want to give a present to someone that is a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old girl, and she likes fantasy books, and I want to see something that is very specific, or I want to see books that are historical romance with a magical realism topic inside. So I think these optimized search engines and having maybe the age groups appear within the website, so that people can see, oh, this book is for 5 years old. It's for a beginning readers. It can help with the curatorship, and it can help the readers find the books that they really want to see. So I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, well, now we have big data, and we have artificial intelligence, and we have a lot of things that, of course, cannot substitute the creativity or the emotional part in the human beings, but help us with dealing with so much data that we have now, with so much information. So yes, optimized search engines will be are the difference.
Yeah.
That's a great outlook, what we can do with standardized metadata, of course. Yeah, that's great. I think it's a great finish, actually, because we are now kind of the end of the talk. And if there anything else what you want to say, or you wish for more standardization or for the metadata in your countries, or for the worldwide development? If not, is the audience having some questions?
No, I'm only
Well, we look forward.
I'm only getting thank yous here. So at the moment, I'm just wait for, here are some question. It says, there are other problems. The central databases have one format, but not all wholesalers take this data. And the one forgotten topic is that Europe uses thema, not BISAC, and there's no one to correspond between the two, and they are not translatable. This maybe there's a short answer to that, Jan?
Well, these are tough to answer question in short. What I can answer is that what we already do in example, in Mexico and Brazil, we map from BISAC to thema. So there's a translation possible. So mappings are existing already. So you can use them and you can implement them in systems like we have done that. Otherwise, I agree, the interconnectivity between systems, and even speaking about Onyx as a high standard, this is the biggest issue we are dealing with. And it's about coming up in the future with good solutions to make that fit. On the other hand side, we know that placing new standards, and this is what we think especially can be done in markets like Mexico and Brazil, where standards are not that common to use so far, so that we are just in the process to go there. We can set up one standard. I would say German market is dealing with some more issues in that case due to reason that for historical reasons, that this is more organically grown over the time, and so the history is bigger.
All right, I think that was the last question that I can see here. And yeah, I'd say thank you very much. It was a very interesting talk. Thanks to all of you. And I will now stop the live and wish you a good day.
Thank
you
you
for
to
the
all.
invitation.
Thank
It
you,
was
everyone.
nice talking to you all.
Thank you.
Nice
It
talking
Thank
was
you all.
great having you.
Very cool.
Auf
Bye-bye.
Wiedersehen.
Bye.
We'll keep
Bye.
in touch.